Live from Kakariko Village. Broadcast throughout the Retroverse, transmitted to the real world via a maze of wires connecting a Super Nintendo to a Wii, to a Wi-Fi network, and finally to the Internet. The Techno Funk Boy presents the Retro Zoo Super Show. Now here are your hosts, Kai and Steven.
Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the Retro Zoo Super Show. I am your host, Kai. We are joined by our producer, Drum. Drum, how's it going today?
I'm functioning normally.
Always happy to hear that, Drum. Steven is, like he was last week, sitting with the band. Steven, how are you? I'm sorry, what? What? Oh, you don't have a microphone, so we can't hear you. That's a shame. And then also, like last week, I am sitting in Steven's chair, and we have Dan Gelok sitting in mine.
Hi, everybody.
He's got to be by the keyboard.
This keyboard's a pretty great keyboard.
Yes. So if you could refrain.
I don't want to refrain.
From playing it.
That organ sound is great, though.
It's my favorite thing ever.
Do you have an 8-bit sound on this?
Everything you hear on both our opening themes and our closing themes are coming out of that model.
Can I get those sounds? Actually, you know what? That's probably a bad idea. If we want to talk about reasonable things, it's probably just keep the organ sound. All right, please carry on.
Oh, goodness. So, thank you so much for joining us. So last week we only got through half of the material we wanted to, talking about Symphony of the Night, specifically the Symphony of the Night soundtrack, which is only one small part of that amazing game. But, I mean, frankly, we can't contain the entire game into one episode. We can't even do the whole soundtrack in one episode.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is appropriate, too, because it's the 20th anniversary of the game this year,
I meant to mention that last episode.
Yeah. Congratulations to Square Enix?
No.
Konami? Who made the Castlevania games?
Who did make the Castlevania games?
Holy crap! We're gonna have to cut this.
It was Konami, wasn't it? No, it wasn't. We're experts here. The Retro Zoo Super Show. We do this for a living.
Remember, kids, just because you're an expert doesn't mean you know everything.
Or anything, really. Goodness. Let's pull this up real quick. I don't feel like an idiot.
That's okay. We'll just retake that.
This is a live show. I know you're used to pre-recording.
I am very used to pre-recording. So people can hear me right now?
Yes. Konami, just like we thought.
Yeah, just like I said.
We're just
man,
double checking ourselves.
I'm a fan of retro games. But
so we got through exactly one song last week.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we're gonna get through one more.
Yeah. And there are 34 tracks on the soundtrack, so I think we're set for the next almost year, right?
Right, yes. Steven, no, sit down. No, we're live, man.
It's okay, Steven.
We're live. So, before we get onto that, let us get into a little bit of news. So for our news segment today, we actually have our arts correspondent on the line to discuss a new production he managed to catch last night, which is, I think, a really appropriate thing to talk about when in a music-focused episode. So Clive, are you there? Can you hear me okay?
Indeed, Kai, thank you.
Okay, great. Well, tell us about this new performance.
Yes, it was quite magnificent. Last night I took my place amongst the upper crust of society to witness the new opera being staged at the fabulous opera house on the Jidor Peninsula. The impresario was, as always, quite fetching, and the hospitality quite adequate. I have, of course, been here many times and know them well for their refinement and attention. The opera itself, titled Maria and Draco, started out quite cliché, I'm afraid. Star-crossed lovers, torn apart by war, and then the woman, Maria, in this case, is left wondering if her true love has indeed died. She is forced into engagement to the prince of her enemy, and in a highlight of the story, she sings of her lost love and the role that she must play. The music was inspiring and moving, even though the plot was not. But then things took quite an unexpected turn.
Draco is still alive?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was a most expected turn. But as soon as he showed up, another man, uncredited in the playbill, fell from the sky with a large purple octopus. The story at this point was most difficult to follow, but the staged battle scene was easily the best I had seen.
Did you say an octopus?
Yes, most peculiar, yet it worked quite well. I believe the octopus to be representing the strength and slitherliness of fate, and how it had imposed its will on these two lovers, taking Draco away, then returning him only to take him away again and deliver unto Maria this new character, heretofore unseen, unheard of, and yet isn't that exactly the way fate goes with us? I must say that even the orchestra seemed surprised at the turn of events, but we were all on the edge of our seats awaiting the end. Then yet another man came in and abducted poor Maria, and the curtain fell on a marvelous performance. I can only assume they're setting up a sequel with that sort of ending. A very fine production indeed.
Okay, well, all right, well, that sounds great. Clive, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Kai.
All right, well, if you are near the Opera House, that performance will be running through the end of next month. So I do encourage you to head on over and witness whatever this was. And now let's get back into it with Symphony of the Night. To reset, first of all, let's explain who you are again.
Sure.
Because it's been a week. And, you know, most of us don't think about you that often.
No, then you really shouldn't. Should I introduce myself?
Go for it.
All right, my name is Dan Gelok. I am a professor of music at the University of Houston. I am specifically a saxophonist, but being a professor means you need to know about
I don't know if that came through at all.
Steven's pronouncing saxophone incorrectly over on the side there. Anyway, no, but we tend to know a little bit about music theory, and I'm a fan of retro gaming, so that's why we're here.
Yeah, so I didn't mention this last week. I did mention that you correct me a lot about music.
I wouldn't say that. I would say I round off your understanding.
What I didn't mention is I actually throw a lot of questions your way, and it's because, you know, I have played music my entire life, and a good chunk of that time I didn't understand how it fit together.
Yeah.
It was just I knew what a major scale was, I knew what a minor scale was. I actually knew more scales than that, but I didn't understand how it fit together. But now that we're actually talking about music and trying to analyze it a little bit, in relation to games, I wanted to learn more, so I have been tossing weird questions your way very randomly, and you've been you should only call me an idiot a few times in each.
No, I mean, I love it. I love this stuff. Yeah. So if you're unfamiliar with the term, music theory is a term that we use to understand the science behind music, or basically just looking at music and understanding how it's put together. So you can explain, why does Mozart sound like Mozart? Or why does this song sound sad? It's an attempt to explain things like that. So I love discussing that. And, there's lots of applications for that in video game music too.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we're not going to retread a lot of what we did last week.
Okay.
Last week we established that the soundtrack to Symphony of the Night sounded gothic-y.
Yeah.
Which you said was not a term that I should use for music.
No, a better term would be baroque.
Baroque. And we then looked at one of the pieces, and today we're going to tackle one more, and then we're going to kind of round it all up a little bit more tidy with how it fits into the game itself.
Yeah.
And so I think that's pretty much going to be it. And you're kind of, you being the listener are going to be left just kind of applying this to the rest of the soundtrack. And I think this gives you kind of a good basis for doing so, with the possible exception of the kind of gothic-y metal boss fights. But that's a whole nother,
which are pretty sweet.
Oh, they're great, and after honestly playing the game after all of the kind of more soft, the slower tempo.
Oh, you're ready for it when a boss shows up and you hear it kick into overdrive and there's a real guitar coming out of your PlayStation.
Yeah,
you are ready to go.
Yeah, it's it gets the heart rate going a little bit. So, all right. So, what song are we listening to?
We're going to listen to "The Dance of Pearls."
So, this is going to be weird because we normally play our music at the break, but we're going to play it now because otherwise you're not going to know what we're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. So, as you do listen, think of this: what sort of mood is this giving off? Like, how does it make you feel emotionally? And we'll talk a little bit about that once we hear it.
Great. All right. So here we are, Dance of Pearls. All right, so just again, just to kind of cover, a little bit of the housekeeping stuff. It came out on PlayStation 97. We're talking the same year, I believe, same year as Final Fantasy VII. Michiru Yamane was the composer, and as I understand it, this was supposed to be like a B tier level Castlevania game, because everybody was rushing into 3D, and this was still a 2D side scroller. And then it turned out to be this Metroidvania classic. And we're going to get back. I know I mentioned the term Metroidvania last week, and we're going to get into that in just a little bit. But this game helped kind of solidify Yamane as the Castlevania composer. That's what she's been known for ever since. And getting into Dance of Pearls, and I've also seen this translated as Waltz of Pearls. I don't think it makes it that big of a difference.
Well, the waltz makes sense.
The waltz definitely makes sense, yes. And knowing nothing about Japanese
does have a phonetic portion of it, which could explain if translation pales or pearls. But I don't know. I don't speak Japanese, so I'm just making a guess at that. I do know there's a phonetic element where they adopt English words.
Yeah, and so just throwing out both titles in case you are looking at your track listing, and if you're looking at the same CD that I bought for it, none of it's in English anyways, and so you're looking at an online listing of tracks, and you're going to see it one of those two ways, I think.
And if you're listening and you know Japanese, feel free to write into the podcast and tell us what you think.
Yes, thank you. Especially
largely because I'm not getting that email. You're getting that email.
I know your email address. I can forward.
You can forward it to me. That's fine.
All right. So first things first, what jumps out at me, similar thing of what we were talking about last week. Mm-hmm. This is not what we expect in an action game. Where we're jumping around.
Yeah.
Fighting undead monsters.
Nope.
This is a setting defining piece.
I'm going to create a new term here. This is a new theory term, new music theory term, people. So I'm
just making up crap.
I am. Well, no. This is okay because I am a professional musician, and so I'm allowed to coin new terminology. The new term is beep boop music.
Beep boop.
Beep boop. Beep boop music is going to be referred to any incidental music, such as, what you'd hear in the background of a Mario Brothers level, like old school NES background music. And the only reason that I'm calling it that is because what you're listening to now is about as far removed from that as can be considered. I mean, we've got here, this is the first thing that I thought when I listened to this track is that it sounds like the composer Shostakovich. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that in that's kind of that way. I mean, literally, he could have written it. There's a lot here, but anyway, I'll save that for later.
Oh, I really don't have a plan on where we're going, so...
Okay, well, I'll go there now. All right, so here's the thing. The reason that I think this is really pretty impressive is because I didn't really know what to expect. I had never played the game, and so when you handed me the soundtrack, I thought, oh, well, what am I going to get? And I knew that at some point they had, developed video game soundtracks to the point where they're actually quite ornate. Uematsu goes around playing with symphony orchestras around the world, playing, performances of his music, and people just absolutely fill out the entire concert hall. Singapore Symphony Orchestra did a concert of his music, I think 4 or 5 years ago, and they sold out every night and started opening extra nights, which is very, very rare and very good for classical music.
Yeah.
So, in other words, you don't always sell out a concert hall, but Uematsu sold it out literally all the performances, and then they opened up extra performances and sold those out too. So there's a lot of call for this, and it obviously is a good enough draw, that people are really into it. So
Yeah.
at some point it evolved, right? It started with beat boop music, and it ended up filling the concert halls of the best orchestras in the world.
Yeah.
So, okay, so let's take a look at what we just heard. I actually, in preparing for this, I did an analysis of this piece the same way that I would have done an analysis for a piece of Beethoven's music.
Please don't be boring.
I promise you I'm not going to be boring.
Okay.
All right.
Because
So
we're
the
live
mood,
and I can't.
Okay,
catch
I'll
it.
ask you the question. What mood does this evoke here? What does this make you feel? Like, how does this music make you feel? If you'd never heard this before, what sort of background would this give to you?
You know, okay. So this is interesting because I first heard this piece in the setting of the game,
Right.
but it does not make me. It does not remind me of the action of the game.
So you can distance yourself a little bit.
Right.
Okay.
It reminds me of the setting of the game.
Okay. So tell me about that. Like, this, why does this song remind you of the setting?
Because it sounds gothic-y.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about.
But yeah, no, it even okay. In last episode, we talked about the heavy uses of strings and organs, and this one, you know, in this one is more piano, less organ.
Yeah.
Still has the strings.
Yep.
Incorporating some other stuff, but it's still, even though it's one of the few pieces on the whole album that uses piano instead of an organ.
That's right.
It still has that very mysterious feel to it.
Yeah.
That there's stuff going on.
There's a very Neil Gaiman vibe to this. You know,
Oh,
it's
okay,
like,
that's an interesting way to put it. Yeah.
you know, you've got it's very reliable. This pop pa, pop pa, pop pa. It's a waltz.
Yeah.
So you've got this big, dignified dance, right? But the notes are really spacey. They go outside of the normal scale and start playing all sorts of notes that don't really belong there. And it's not in a way that makes it sound jarring or anything. It's still very musical, but it sounds creepy.
Yeah.
The note choices that they use are just a tiny bit wrong.
Right. And I'll say, because I'm going to steal from your notes a little bit.
Yeah.
Because this goes toward what I'm feeling from the piece, is that the rhythm of the melody is very close in all the repetitions.
Yeah.
The notes have some variety.
Yep.
And the key changes, the melody changes, and so we're dealing with a repetition of a feeling that is the repetition is very reliable. The notes are not.
Yeah.
And that kind of puts a kind of an element that of, you know, you're not quite sure what to expect, that there is something right around the corner that you're not expecting, even though you feel like you should be expecting it.
Yeah.
And it gives that really creepy vibe to it.
Absolutely. You're actually hitting on something extremely important here. So this is, okay, just full disclosure here. I was not expecting a piece of music that was this well crafted. I was expecting beat boop music.
Yeah.
This actually, as I mentioned, you can analyze this the way you analyze a piece of high classical music. So let me give you another fancy term: orchestration. Orchestration means what instruments play each note. So, for instance, at the beginning, the melody comes from the piano.
Right.
But when it switches over to the what we'd call the B theme, or the thing that's different in the middle, it plays it in the low strings. But then when that melody repeats, it plays it in this oboe sound.
Yeah.
And then later it comes back to the A section again and it plays it in the piano, but then the flute plays it later.
Right.
And so what the composer is doing is constantly varying what instrument is playing the melody. And it keeps it fresh and it keeps it interesting. Now, if this was beat boop music, it would have been the same sound every single time it would have come around. Because the point of beat boop music is simplicity. They don't care about that. Well, they care about simplicity, but they care about quality. And there's a complexity here that only comes when a composer actually really cares about what they're putting out. So yeah, I mean, we start, the whole piece starts with this low string note that's held, and you just have that there, and it's just holding there, and there's this creepy high octave sound over the top. And by the way, after I'm done explaining all this, go back and listen to the recording again so you can hear everything I'm talking about. So it starts with this low string, and it's just holding a note, and that gives us the sense of tension. And then these high octaves are coming out, and it's playing all these really funny high notes. And again, these are chromatic notes. They don't fit into a scale. They sit outside of a scale, so it's just a little supernatural. And that adds to the feeling of the vampire, right? And you've got the sense of tension, and you know the tension is going to be released. But when it's released, all of a sudden it gets turned into this dance. You get this waltz, this 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 sort of feel, which, I'm sorry, after that introduction, I wasn't expecting that sort of waltz. So it was very surprising. And again, Dracula, vampires are surprising because they're intelligent creatures. They're not just beasts. And so, you know, what you're fighting against in Castlevania is an intelligent force. And it's adding to the feeling of what's going on here. So it's really chromatic. It's all got all these creepy notes, and the waltz makes it feel like this high society thing, because who dances waltzes? Rich people in powdered wigs, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so you've got this really sophisticated, think about a concert hall, or, you know, it's not a jazz club. It's not a rock and roll venue. It's very sophisticated. And this waltz is in the middle of this video game. So, and then if you were even to boil it down to the form is, again, here's another classical term. It's called ternary form. It's just a fancy word for meaning a 3-part form. It's got an A section, and then it does something different in the middle, and then it goes back to the A section. And all of this, like I said, uses the same techniques that somebody like Mozart or Brahms or Shostakovich or Prokofiev would have used. All this terminology fits with this piece as it also would fit in any significant piece of classical music. So what you're dealing with here is not beat boop music. They've taken something simple and they've evolved it into what I would consider to be a higher art form. You could play this in a concert hall and not tell anybody where it came from, and people wouldn't bat an eyelid.
Yeah. So in the context of the game, I mean, you could kind of scroll through the titles of the pieces in the soundtrack itself, and you can see the word dance or waltz, 5-6 times.
Yeah.
And so, this is a theme that she's coming back to. This piece actually does pull out some surprises even within the context of the game, simply in the tones that it's using.
Yeah.
So it jumps to a piano instead of an organ.
Yes.
Much like the one we talked about last week, the word carving partita used a harpsichord instead of the organ.
Right.
Then
that's another thing I just thought of. Sorry. Side note. Harpsichord is old. Vampires are very, very old.
Right. Yeah.
There's this ancient sort of smell or flavor to it. Just a side point. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. So, all right, let me go ahead and ask this now.
Yeah.
Because we're getting closer to the point where we're going to talk more about the influence of the game.
Yeah.
All right. Let me pull this up because I want to get the year right. The game itself takes place in 1796.
Okay.
So musically, where is that landing us?
This puts us in the transition between the classical and the romantic periods.
All right. So well after Baroque.
It is. So
Okay.
it's a bit of an anachronism.
But that, I mean,
It doesn't, I don't think it really takes away from the quality of it at all.
But I mean, Dracula himself has always been that way.
Well, Dracula, the whole point of Dracula is that he is centuries old, right?
Yeah. So like and I know we're drawing our image of Dracula from the old monster movies, but so is the game. And so that's totally legitimate.
Okay.
We have this image of Dracula playing the organ, and he's playing Bach.
Yeah.
Dracula's written in the 1800s. And so that's late for Bach, for him to be playing Bach.
You mean, okay, so it's set in the 1800s.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But he's playing Bach. I mean, the whole point being, it's possible that he was around when Bach was fresh and in his heyday, right?
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, whenever we're dealing with vampires, especially vampires of any age,
Yeah.
there is, there is kind of like, a man out of time element to them.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so it doesn't, it's what we would expect that in the late 1800s, Dracula, and I don't recall that there's any reference to Bach in the book itself, but it makes total sense.
It fits.
Yeah. That in the late 1800s, he's a couple of hundred years behind musical trends.
Right.
I mean, goodness, if I live to be 300, years old, I'll still probably be playing 16-bit game music.
Right.
And by that time, I don't know how many bits we will have, but, okay. So that's interesting because that gives us a much broader foundation of tone. So it's not necessarily anachronistic that Yamane's using a harpsichord in the game, because that's something we would see Dracula doing.
Right.
But it's also that she can use a piano.
If you want to be pedantic about it, if it's set during 17, when did you say 17?
I just closed that window.
I'm sorry. Nobody would be using a harpsichord during that year.
Oh yeah, sure.
But also, nobody cares. That's a stupid thing to care about.
Right.
Because the whole point is establishing a mood.
Yeah.
And the mood is ancient and threatening and gothic.
Yeah.
And sure, so the time period, like I said, it's a bit anachronistic. But the whole point with music is that it's setting a mood and it's driving the story forward.
Right. Yeah, and that was a way roundabout way of me talking about, using piano in this song.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she also uses electric guitar, for crying out loud. She's got heavy metal tunes going on.
That is a little off.
But again, like I said in the last episode, she's got influences from chromaticism. She's got influences from Baroque music. She's got influences from jazz. She's got influences from video game music, from beat boop music.
Yeah.
So she's drawing all these things together and creating something pretty cool using those as influences.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And in this case, we're, I think we're seeing more of the individual tones of the full orchestra.
Oh yeah.
We see a lot of.
Yeah.
They coming in with the oboe, which always kind of has a kind of a supernatural tone to it by itself. It's just kind of a weird, almost Eastern sounding tone.
Debussy would use it, Ravel and Fauré would use it when they were evoking images of the Far East.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's a timbre. It's a very specific tone color. And once again, I was not expecting music of this quality. When the oboe started playing, I said, wait, hang on. And I went back and rewound it because I was surprised that the composer cared enough to orchestrate the music with all these different sounds. You'd think, okay, this is video game music. They found the string section setting on their keyboard.
Right.
And they're going to make some string section sounds. Good for you. Like I said, they could have taken this and played it in a concert hall. And people, and could have called it a piece by Prokofiev or Shostakovich or one of the Russians from the 20th century and said, this is this new waltz that we just found. And nobody would have batted an eyelid. They would have said, yeah, that sounds exactly right.
It fits. That's very cool.
Yeah, it's very well put together music.
Okay, so we are about to hit the break, but is there anything else we need to dive into on this tune?
No, I think that's pretty thorough.
Okay, great. Well, we will be right back. Hey Drum, did you know that the Techno Funk Boy isn't just a group of podcast hosts that live inside a Super Nintendo?
Really?
That's right, we're also a band.
Tell me more.
We're a retro gaming inspired band that plays covers of classic video game themes, original game music, and other music in the style of classic games.
That sounds great.
Yeah, and you can find our first full-length album on iTunes, Amazon, and CD Baby. It's called the Final Fantasy Mixes, and it's an EDM tribute to some of Uematsu's best musical themes. Check the episode notes for links or go to Techno Funk Boy to learn more.
Techno Funk Boy sounds like the greatest band that has ever existed.
I programmed him to say that. Okay, so there's one thing that people absolutely never ask us, and that's where we get our shirts. And that's because, you know, this is radio and you can't really see what we're wearing. But despite that, we are very fond of Roslyn Press clothing. The team there is dedicated to retro gaming themed shirts that actually look good and have distinct designs. You can find them on Facebook by looking up Roslyn Press. That's ROSLAND. Look for the Dragon Quest map in the shape of the state of Texas.
I'm back.
Welcome back. All right. So in our last section here, we're going to depart a little bit about the music specific. If you've been with us since, you know, last week's episode, you know that Dan has not actually played this game yet.
I have not played this game.
He has some reference because he knows what Castlevania is. He's played the NES and SNES games.
Oh yeah.
And they're fantastic. So, I wanted to actually, you know, we've hinted to this a little bit, but I wanted to actually attach this to the game.
Okay. Can I ask a question before you do?
Yes.
Is Simon Belmont the main character?
No.
What? Okay. Does the main character use a whip?
No.
What?
Weird.
How do you even call it a Castlevania game?
Okay, this is cool. All right, so it starts off in the prelude. And the prelude is actually the last part of Rondo of Blood. Now, here's where it gets confusing because the game tells you it's the last part of Castlevania Bloodlines. But it's just wrong. It's Rondo of Blood.
Okay.
So, in Rondo of Blood, we had Richter Belmont, which is, of course, one of the Belmonts, using a whip. And he teams up with a girl named Maria. I can't remember how old she is. She's very, very young. And Dracula's half vampire, half human son, Alucard.
Okay.
Which is Dracula spelled backwards.
Oh. And he's a vampire. Vampire is a half Dracula.
I always call them Dhampirs.
Vampire is half human, half vampire, right? Is that right? Do I get the term right? Vampire?
I thought it was Dhampir with a
Dhampir?
D. Yeah.
Oh,
but
I could be wrong. Yeah.
I think I'm stealing that from Vampire Hunter D.
That's a great series.
Which actually I think was. I have no proof for this, but I'm pretty sure that was a direct influence on Alucard himself.
That'd be great.
So Alucard, his history is actually fleshed out quite a bit in the Netflix series on Castlevania.
Oh yeah, I thought that the Netflix series was based on Symphony of the Night.
No, it's based on Castlevania 3 for the NES.
Oh, no way.
But Alucard makes his first appearance in that game.
Very cool.
And so the series takes some liberties and just kind of encompasses the entire history. And so it pulls some elements from Symphony of the Night and Rondo of Blood to kind of explain the background. And so Dracula falls in love with a human woman. They have a son. And the villagers burn the woman at the stake for consulting with demons.
Gotcha.
And that kind of pisses Dracula off, something awful.
I would expect.
Yes. And so he begins his reign of terror. Now, I will note, for those who have not seen the series, I'm guessing you have not seen the series.
Oh, no, I haven't.
So, I really do like it. I have two warnings to give. The first is the language is frankly unnecessary. I don't understand it. It's distracting.
Okay.
I mean, and if you watch it, you're like, I don't know why he just said the F word. I don't understand. The other thing. Okay. The other thing is their treatment of the church itself seems kind of coming out of left field.
Okay.
Where the church in this series is actually the real villain.
Are they trying to be edgy?
I think so.
Okay.
Other than that, it's actually really good. And I really like, the way they encompass everything. But that's neither here or there, just to know that...
You're trying to appeal to the kids. Dropping F-bombs and shaking your fist at authority figures.
Exactly. So this is kind of the history of it, and so this is where Alucard comes from. And Alucard, his philosophy comes much more from his mother, who told him while she was being burned to not hold it against humans.
Okay.
If you can't live with them, then just leave them alone.
Okay.
And that's what Alucard did. Is he kind of buried himself and he left him alone. But he does get up to help Richter Belmont in Rondo of Blood. So fast forward 5 years. Maria is now a young adult, and Richter goes crazy. And
why?
We don't know yet.
I'm
getting to that. This is plot.
Okay.
This is plot.
No, I didn't realize that it was yet to be resolved.
Right.
Keep going.
And so
I'm excited.
He runs off into the distance with Maria confused and following him.
Okay.
And Dracula's castle reappears way too early for it to reappear.
Okay.
And so that awakens Alucard, who is the hero of the game.
Okay.
So instead of a Belmont wielding a whip, you now play a half vampire wielding a sword.
Wow.
So this is where it really gets interesting.
All right, so it's within the canon then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right, okay.
And this is where it really gets interesting, because the first games are drawn mostly from the Marvel, the Universal monster movies.
The monster movies, yeah, right.
This is where the game is starting to pull more from Bram Stoker. Because there's a lot of elements in the game where, like, Alucard, during the course of the game, can learn to transform into a bat, into a wolf, and into mist.
Oh, cool.
And when I first played the game, I had not read Dracula yet. And I'm like, why in the world those three forms? Because that's what Bram Stoker said that Dracula can turn into.
Right.
And so they are pulling directly from, they're starting to pull more from Bram Stoker.
That's
now
cool.
Than
That's
the
really
Universal
cool.
Monsters. And so your job is to figure out what's going on, why Richter's gone crazy, why Dracula's castle has reappeared.
Gotcha.
And so you can this is where and I'm going to total spoil it for you. I'm sorry, but
don't do that.
It's been 20 years.
Don't do it.
It's been 20 years.
There are people that haven't played the game.
It's been 20 years.
There are people in the room that haven't played the game yet. All right, fine. Go ahead and spoil it. Cover your ears, listeners.
So, you can get one of two endings.
Oh.
The first is you encounter Richter, he's gone mad, and you kill him, and then you, in the game, hang out with Maria going, oh, that was a shame.
Okay.
Or, if you dig farther into the mystery, then you learn that Richter is actually being controlled.
Okay.
By a character that appeared in Rondo of Blood. And this character is the Dark Priest Shaft. Who you kill, but he comes back as a ghost.
Shaft.
His name is Shaft.
Shaft is a ghost.
Yes.
His name is Shaft.
My question for you is, who is the Dark Priest that keeps coming back, even though deceased?
Shaft!
Who is the bad guy who's such a pain, who takes control of Richter's brain?
Shaft!
He is a bad mother.
Shut your mouth.
Hey, I'm just talking about Shaft, baby.
Oh my goodness.
We had to do that.
I'm sorry, everybody. That was a necessary evil.
But if you dig far enough into this mystery, then you figure out that Shaft is controlling Richter.
Shaft!
And so you defeat Shaft instead of defeating Richter. And then the true threat reveals itself. So this is one of the cool...
So this is the true ending, the real ending.
Yes.
The good ending.
So this is what's really interesting about this game. If beat Richter, you can have 100% complete on the game.
Okay.
The real goal is actually over 200%.
What?
Because the entire castle upside down appears over the castle, and you have to beat the castle again upside down.
Whoa!
with all new challenges and all new bosses.
So it's literally twice the game if you take the second ending.
Yeah. And you could be totally satisfied getting like there were a lot of people at the time who beat it 100% and were very satisfied because it's a good length of a game.
Wow.
But you don't get the good ending.
Is 200% too long?
No.
You sure?
Oh, I didn't think so.
Okay.
I mean, if you know how to beat the game,
Yeah.
like I actually watched a speed run of it. Actually earlier today, that was less than 30%. minutes. Now that's stupid. That's a speed run. I mean,
you can speed wait at 200%.
Oh no! It's not the full 200%,
Okay,
but it is
so
the good ending.
Wait, you got the sorry, you got the good ending,
Right.
Okay. Well, that's a reasonable thing.
Yeah. That's being able to control Richter. I mean, I'm sorry, Richter. That's being able to control Alucard to its fullest extent.
Yeah.
And he can do some amazing stuff. So the type of game this is called a Metroidvania.
Yes.
I don't know who coined that term.
Okay.
But,
well, it's funny because I had never heard this term until you mentioned it in episode 5-ish, 4-ish.
Did I mention it then?
Yeah, you did. And I'd never heard it before. And I thought Metroidvania, and having not played Castlevania games except previous to what we're talking about, but having played a little bit of Metroid, I started to understand what you were talking about. I didn't realize that this was a genre, but it's a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously Castlevania did not start out this way.
Right.
But games like Symphony of the Night turned it into that.
Yeah.
And these are games where you're not going through linear levels, but you are actually expanding the game outward as your character develops.
Yeah, concentric circles style.
Yeah, and so you can't, when you first start, you're not strong enough to reach a certain ledge, or you don't have the ability to get through a door.
Open a door. Right.
So in Metroid, this is done by, first of all, the ledge is too high and you need to upgrade your boots to jump that high. Or the door is sealed with, by missiles or a certain type of bomb or something.
And you need to in Metroid, you couldn't turn into the little ball and roll through the
right.
thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That sort of thing.
So, in Castlevania, it's magic based. You need to learn how to transform into mist to get through this. You need to learn how to become a wolf to get through this.
Right.
You need to learn how to do a double jump to get through this.
Mm-hmm.
And so the game does expand outwards. The second half of the game is more, you can play it more linearly.
Okay. By that point, you've already developed all the skills.
Right. Yeah. Going into the second half, and the second half is a tribute to the first two games because you're facing the 5 bosses from game number 1.
Really?
And you're gathering the 5 pieces of Dracula from game number 2.
Ah, that's cool.
And then at the very end, you face off against Shaft, who he dies. He doesn't die. He never dies. But it does manage to put together Dracula, and you have to face off with your father.
I'm sorry, I can't get over the fact that this guy's name is Shaft.
Shaft.
I cannot dig it.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. Okay.
Isaac Hayes would be disappointed.
Yeah. Did you see the movie Lady Water?
Yeah.
Okay, so that movie it's one of my favorite films.
Really?
Yeah,
I thought it was meh for M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah. Well, you're wrong. So.
Fine.
But
Agree to disagree.
But one thing that really kind of takes me out of the moment is like one of the creatures is like I might be misremembering this, but I think it's like called a narf.
It's been years since I've seen this film.
Which is the sound that Pinky makes in Pinky and the Brain.
That I do remember that because Animaniacs was a significant portion of my upbringing.
Right. It is so it's difficult to take that movie seriously.
Oh boy.
Narf, really? You can't pick a better name? And I don't know what they were thinking.
That's what happens when you're trying to be clever and you find out that you just named a character after a blaxploitation film or something like that. It happens every day.
Right. Oh, so now you know why the person on the cover of the box is all pretty and white.
Oh, he's gorgeous.
And yeah,
He's a beautiful man.
and yeah, they really pumped up the prettiness for this game. He was not that attractive in prior games.
If you haven't seen it, okay, the first thing I saw, I was like, well, this is like a manga style, anime style game.
Yeah.
Did Castlevania move in that direction at some point?
Well, yeah, no, it absolutely did, and that was much more prevalent in Japan, of course, than here.
Well, that makes sense. I just didn't realize that it had become a anime stylized.
Yeah, no, it definitely is.
Yeah, okay.
And
it fits.
So when you play it, I have to warn you,
okay,
has one of the most spectacular soundtracks of all time. Just some of the most smooth gameplay of all time, and it has probably the single worst voice acting in the history of video games.
I can't wait.
If we could, Drum, do you mind inserting some audio from the game?
Die, monster! You don't belong in this world!
It was not by my hand that I'm once again given flesh. I was called here by humans who wish to pay me tribute.
Tribute? You steal men's souls and make them your slaves.
Perhaps the same could be said of all religions.
Your words are as empty as your soul. Mankind ill needs a savior such as you.
What is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets. But enough talk. How about you?
That was glorious. That was.
I don't know why it was so hard for them.
I am astounded. They were working so hard to make this happen.
How they sunk that much effort into the game, and then they get to.
There was a team of 30 people on this trying to make this work. Good heavens, people!
I don't know. I don't know if that was. I believe that was part of the localization, and not in the original text was not in English.
Okay, well, that would make sense.
But how
can we blame translation errors for the majority of this?
Do you know about the website and the subsequent books, Legends of Localization?
No.
It is really fascinating, very technical stuff. And I'm blanking on the dude's name who writes it. But he, it's just. He is a professional translator of video games from Japanese to English.
Okay.
And so he parses stuff out to explain why they translated things in certain ways.
I see.
And a lot of it was just not understanding idioms and not understanding things. But this is just pure cheapness in getting actors.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, this is a bit of a side note, but did you ever play the X-Men game with the really ridiculous? I can't remember which one it is, but you have things like Magneto saying, "X-Men, welcome to die," and I don't know. You can look it up on YouTube, people. It's just either somebody wasn't paid enough or somebody wasn't trying very hard. The translations, and in this case, it was the translations.
Oh yeah. Oh, sometimes the translations are just.
But
really horrible.
What English actor would look at that and say, "This is what they want me to say, and I shouldn't correct them"?
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, these translation issues were so much easier to come up with when it was text based.
Yeah, right.
So the classic example, of course, is from Zero Wing. All your base belong to us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But that's text.
Right.
It's like,
that would have been an easy thing to fix. You just find a Native American speaker, Native American. What am I saying? A Native English speaker. He could, or she could be Native American. We're very inclusive here. Good heavens. What's wrong with me? Right. You just find somebody that speaks English. Good. Good heavens.
So we'll just have them call you in that.
No, they can take my job. Good heavens. Oy.
In the context of everything we've kind of been talking about.
Yeah.
You can, the fact that you are actually playing.
Sorry, that was my elbow.
This is This is okay. The whole episode this week and last week, the entire time, I've just felt like I've been off my game. I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel like I'm in control.
I have a chord
and it's
for that.
because I'm not.
That was a
It's because
diminished
I'm not
chord.
in my chair. I don't have control over the mixing board. I do not have control.
I got a control. I got a chord for
Over-
that too.
It's the same chord, isn't it?
No, actually, the first one was a C diminished, and the second one was an E flat diminished chord. Fun fact, kids, they contain the same notes.
Oh my gosh.
We should probably wrap this episode
So,
up.
okay, you're not invited back.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay.
I could play some more chords if you'd like.
No, I think there's.
I got
okay,
plenty of chords.
Do you see the little blinking light on the board?
I do. I'm trying to avoid it. Here's a
That's a phone call.
no. Here's a flat 9 chord. It's pretty, don't you think?
Okay, I gotta get back in my seat. Drum, can you turn off the keyboard?
I have been instructed not to.
Steven! He's trying to get back at me. Can you answer the phone call?
All right, I'm going to answer the phone call. Here we go.
I don't think
Hello, caller. You're on the air.
That is my line.
No, I'm in the control seat
It's
now.
my line.
I've got the keyboard, caller. What do you think of that chord?
You have him on mute.
Oh, do I?
Yeah, you
Hang
don't
on,
even know.
I'm gonna take him off of mute. No, never mind. That was a C major 9 chord. Sorry, I hit the wrong button. Hang on, let me put him off of... Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, I wanted to call and discuss your topic today.
Okay. Well, what would you like to say?
This is the first time I've listened to your show, and honestly, I didn't catch the whole thing. And
Not a promising start, but go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, that is fine. Okay, so my name's Kai. This is Dan.
Hello.
yes, I hear you carry.
First of all, what's your name?
Yeah, I'm sorry. My name's Philip.
Hi, Philip.
I don't really understand. When I tuned in, you were telling a really sad story about the son of a murdered woman whose father was trying to take revenge, and the son had to stand up to him and defy his father and actually fight him, and then y'all are making jokes and playing weird chords on a keyboard. I don't understand. Are you laughing at me?
Oh, no, not at all. Sorry.
I mean, that's a very serious thing. That took a lot of courage on the son's part, and
Right. Philip, we were discussing a video game. It was a story. It was a make-believe story. It wasn't a real story. It didn't actually happen. It's okay. I can understand your confusion.
Well, that is confusing. Why in the world would you be talking about that on a talk show? Shouldn't y'all be talking politics? What's going on with Trump?
Well, no, this is a podcast that discusses retro video games.
Pretty sure it's not.
I'm fairly... Kai, this is
Okay,
a retro
yeah.
game, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. This is kind of what we do. We do video games.
Because I listen to talk radio, and mostly we're talking about Trump. What do y'all think about Trump?
No, that's not what we're doing here.
We're really not talking about
No, we're
that
not.
today.
Don't you think that's important? I mean, this is the fate of the free world, not some made-up story.
I do have some chords for Trump. Can I play some chords for
Okay,
Trump?
That's probably not going to help the situation.
Are you sure? I've got some good chords.
This is for entertainment.
Hang on.
This is for entertainment.
this
This
is
is not for,
all the notes between F and B.
Okay, I know something about entertainment, and that chord is not entertaining, so You're bad at talk show hosting, and you're bad at entertaining.
I thought it was very entertaining.
I'm going to side with Philip.
Yes,
Okay,
it's
fine.
Philip.
I'm outvoted.
Okay.
Fine. I'm going to play it one more. I'm going to play it 3 more times.
Oh gosh.
2. Okay, 3. I'm done.
Okay, well, I'm glad.
I lied. I had to do it one more time.
So, you might change the format of the show.
Go ahead, caller.
Maybe this Dan. It's Dan, right? That's playing.
Yeah.
Maybe Dan should do a separate podcast.
Well, I actually do have a separate podcast.
Is this what you do on your podcast?
Not at all.
Do you talk about Trump?
No.
What do you do on your podcast?
Oh, we read short stories. If you're interested in checking out my podcast, it's called Stories for the Road. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts, and it is nothing at all like this podcast.
So let me get this straight. You have a podcast where you're serious and do important literary work, and then you come on someone else's podcast and act a fool and act annoyingly.
That
Yeah.
actually sounds pretty close to what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty accurate summary of what's
Yeah.
going on here.
I haven't listened long, but what I suggest is Kai.
Oh, hey, look, here's a button.
Oh, I liked him.
I didn't like where he was going.
Steven even liked him. I think.
Well, Steven doesn't have a microphone.
Well, I think he was getting to the point that Steven needs his microphone back, and you should not have his microphone anymore.
All right, that's fine. You know what? That's totally reasonable. I'm gonna go. Thank you for having me. It's been delightful.
Yeah, Dan, thanks so much. This has been a lot of fun, and this is kind of an area that we're trying to get more and more into. So thanks again. You just mentioned it. You do have a podcast, not music related. You do not play keyboards on it.
Not once.
Would you like me to come guest host with a keyboard?
I think that's probably fair after what I've just put you and your callers through. However, I'm going to have to ask my co-host who may. She has veto.
Just kick her in the corner.
powers, so yeah, she'll sit in Steven's chair.
Oh gosh. So, all right. So Stories for the Road.
Yeah. You can find us anywhere you get podcasts or at storiesfortheroad.net. It would be great if you listen in. Thanks.
Yeah. It's fantastic. If you're not one to start at episode 1 as I am, I highly recommend, the Father Brown episodes have been my favorite so far.
Yeah. Thank you.
And so those two were a lot of fun. But yeah, that's all the time we have today. We'll be back next week with a special Halloween episode. I know 2 episodes of Castlevania have been Halloweeny, but we are going to tackle another horror game, a strictly horror game and not an action adventure game next week. And so,
what are you doing?
Please.
No teaser? No teaser at all? Just a horror game?
No teaser.
Oh my goodness.
I will say it is a PC game. Steven should be happy. It's a PC game that he has not played, so he will not be happy.
Okay.
By Sierra in the 90s.
Sit down, Steven.
And it is part of an odd genre of games that were adventure games, but it was a subgenre that was an interactive movie. And so they're very quirky games, but I got it at the time. No, it's not a horror game.
Okay.
He guessed missed.
I guess missed. I whispered off microphone just to see if he would tell me what the game is, and he's not telling me.
No. So please join us again next week. So for the show notes today, and please do check out our show notes. We'll have links to everything we talked about, a few behind the scenes things. Please do sign up for our newsletter there. It's at technofunkboy.com/9. That's just the number 9. And that will get you there. In the meantime, be safe, be good. Talk to you next week. Thanks for joining us.
The Retro Zoo Super Show is brought to you by the Techno Funk Boy. Follow us on Twitter at Techno Funk Boy, on Facebook at the Techno Funk Boy, and sign up for our email list at technofunkboy.com. Also look for us on Spotify, iTunes, and Amazon for music. If you are so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast catcher. If you are not so inclined, you are obviously some sort of villain trying to conquer the world. Unowned music and gameplay clips are used for educational and critical purposes. Thank you for listening. Keep gaming. And once you have responsibilities that need to be done at this time, then you